It is. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our second meeting of the year. Adam, will you go ahead and take roll call?
Certainly, Chair. Bartolo Square North, Alice Madrid. Bartolo Square South, Justin Richards. Blackstock North, Nancy Rand. Blackstock South, Christopher Bissonette. Here. Bryce Canyon North, John Hike. Here. Cabrillo, Doug Bartello. Here. Cal Giesler, Elizabeth Garcia. Carriage Square, Lynn Schulman. Here. Channel Islands, Dave Copper. College Estates, John Beck. Diamond Bar, Dennis Ralph. East Village, Ronald Adejo.
So I have
Rio
a
West,
meeting,
Dan Ryberg.
but I don't hear anything.
5 Points Northeast, Pat Brown. Fremont North, Dave Ebbett. Fremont South, Jaime Moreno. Hobson Park East, Jack Villa.
So,
Here.
Jack.
I'm muted,
Hobson Park West, Cecilia
but
Ravello.
I can't hear a thing.
Hollywood by the Sea, Michelle Carrillo. Kamala Park, Bill Winter. La Colonia, Ramon Lopez. Lemonwood Eastmont, Joe Avalar. Marina West, Pat Haydett. Orchard Park, Diana Belzy.
Here.
Oxnard Dunes, Jessica Ulloa.
Join a video or join without video?
Oxnard Shores, Walt Hagedum. Pleasant Valley Estates, Rosanna Biggerstaff. Redwood, Carlos Quiros. Rio Lindo, Tim Gingras. River Park, Paul Sheneblin. Rose Park, Alfonso Arroyo. Sea Air, Edward Castillo. Seaview Estates, Scott Taylor. Sierra Linda, Sergio Garcia. South Bank, Debbie Aravello. South Wind, Sofia Vega. Tierra Vista, Jean-Paul Magallanes.
Here.
Via Marina, Catherine King. Wagon Wheel, Amanda Muir.
Here.
West Village, Michael Gleason.
Here.
Thank you. Wilson, Gary Blum, or James Reach. James. And finally, Windsor North, Andres Sanchez. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Amanda, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes. Please rise so we can say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, before we get into the meeting, as the chair and the want to make sure that INCO maintains its focus and to run orderly meetings, I'd like to make a statement. We cannot have a discussion about this as this is not agendized. But, you know, INCO has been formed since 1973. The business of INCO, and members' responsibility to maintain behavior in good taste, decorum. Neighborhood councils are to work collaboratively with the City of Oxnard for the betterment of our neighborhoods and our city. We are here to help our city government to meet the community's municipal service good needs, evaluate new and existing city service programs, and when there are deficiencies in these programs, to recommend refinements and to undertake direct action on neighborhood improvement projects and much more. Neighborhood councils are to work collaboratively with the City of Oxnard for the furtherance of our neighborhoods and city. We are, in essence, the liaison between Oxnard residents and the City of Oxnard, bringing forth information from the city and providing necessary feedback from our residents. We have been given the important role to represent our neighborhoods by our residents. Based on this honor, we should represent our individual neighborhoods with propriety. As members of INCO, especially the executive board, we should all be held to the highest standards of decorum all times. We cannot be dismissing one another, trashing one another, posting inappropriate comments on social media that do not relate to the business of INCO, disseminating members' personal email information to any non-members of INCO is inappropriate without prior approval to do so. The directory is for the city and INCO members. If a non-member wants to contact a neighborhood council other than their own or even their own, they can be referred to the city website under neighborhoods and send an email that way. This type of behavior gets in the way of the work that we have been elected to do, especially for our neighborhoods and the needs of our city. It deflects from our purpose of INCO. It also brings us all down. It does not look good for this type of behavior. Members in the executive board is not here to settle personal scores. We all have different ways of expressing ourselves with differences of opinion. There will be times when we agitate each other, but we are here for one common cause, and that is the city and the residents therein. INCO members and the executive board is not here, again, to settle scores, but only that of the needs of our city. And that's my statement. And with that, I'd like to go on to public comments, item D. At this time.
Sorry, Chair, we have minutes, approval of minutes.
Huh?
Section C.
Oh, section C? Oh, sorry. Totally missed that. All right, approval of minutes. If you could take a moment to read the last month's minutes, and if anybody wants to make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, any seconds?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by either John Paul or you. Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes? Any nays?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay, let's go to public comments now. At this time, a person may address the INCO on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of INCO. The INCO cannot enter into detailed discussion or take any action on any items presented during public comments at this time. Such items may only be referred to the executive secretary for administrative action or scheduled on a subsequent agenda for discussion. Public comments on items on the agenda will be considered at the time of consideration of the agenda item. Is there anybody for public comments? And I can't see the board, so I don't see any hands raised. Go ahead and go up to the mic.
Hi, my name is Damon Mercado. I'm a student from Oxnard College, at Oxnard Middle College High School, and a resident from the Terra Vista neighborhood. As a member of the Youth Coalition of Oxnard, I have also volunteered to collect resident data for the INCO at the neighborhood cleanups. The Youth Coalition of Oxnard will resume its data collection in March. I want to request for the Youth Coalition to be agenda-sized in the upcoming INCO general meeting so that we can present our progress report to the INCO on March 1st.
Hi, my name is Oscar Ramirez. I'm a youth development specialist and mentor for the Youth Coalition of Oxnard. I'm also a resident of the Fremont North neighborhood. Thank you for listening to our request to be agendized on the March 1st INCO general meeting. The Youth Coalition would also like to let the executive board know that the youth collected data at Bartolo Square North cleanup event back in July. As there was no neighborhood council, we have yet to turn in the data. We, the Youth Coalition, are aware that Bartolo Square North is having a meeting in February 17th at McKenna Elementary to try and elect a neighborhood council. If no council is formed, we can turn in the Bartolo Square data to the INCO in the March 1st general meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hi, Doug.
Good evening, everyone. Chair, board members, general membership, staff, and the public. I just want to commend and thank the Youth Coalition. They showed up at our cleanup in Cabrillo, and they were just terrific. And the information and data that they're providing is going to be very useful to us. And I just want to commend these young people and their leadership for the work they're doing. It was terrific. We had a terrific turnout at Cabrillo for our cleanup, and I want to commend INCO board for fighting to get that back to the neighborhoods. So I know it's an ongoing fight with some issues there. I really feel that this is something that helps promote our neighborhood councils, or these cleanups. It's a way for us to have a good connection with people, introduce ourselves, they get to know us, and get more participation with our neighborhood councils. I think it's extremely important just to that person-to-person contact. It's a very positive event. It helps clean up our neighborhoods. It's just positive all the way around. Some of the concerns I have, the staff from environmental services were fantastic. Rebecca was fantastic. Dawn was a supervisor. We had 8 environmental service people there, and they were terrific. The one concern, though, is I know a lot of those members of staff are working on overtime. And so, you know, we've got a tight budget. We've got a lot of issues to deal with here in Oxnard. And this used to be an all volunteer effort. You know, it had city core involved, so there was some payment to that. But by and large, we had a lot of volunteers. Now, for my neighborhood council, we had a lot of volunteers show up, but since it was so well staffed by the city, that they were just basically kind of sitting around. There was nothing for them to do. So I'm hopeful that we'll swing back toward more volunteers and less staff overtime. But overall, it was a really positive event. And I want to thank the Youth Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Hi, Patty Lau Cho, project coordinator for the Youth Coalition. I'm from the West Village neighborhood. I just wanted to thank the INCO for being so welcoming to the Youth Coalition, to the students from the different Oxnard high schools that come and do this project. And I really hope that the Youth Coalition gets agendized for the March 1st general meeting so that they can come and present all of the data. It's a great way for the youth to learn skills in public communication and just community service as well. So we really appreciate the opportunity and we hope that we can be of service. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody online? No. Okay. If there's nobody else, let's go on to new business. The subject is the Brown Act. Jason Zaragoza is going to be our presenter, that the INCO General Membership receive a verbal report from Jason Zaragoza, Deputy City Attorney on Ralph M. Brown Act. I think you're good.
Nope. Yes? All right. Any technical difficulties, we'll blame Adam tonight. Issues with the presentation, we will also blame Adam. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the INCO. Jason Zaragoza, Deputy City Attorney. And I have Chelsea Ballett here with me as well. She's also a Deputy City Attorney in our office. So after this presentation, if you ever have any Brown Act questions, issues, you can reach out to either one of us, or you can reach out to Adam. And we'll try to get some answers for you. Okay, so obviously tonight we're here to discuss the Brown Act. And in this discussion, the Brown Act has been amended many times since 1951 or 53. But at the heart of the Brown Act is still this. The purpose of the Brown Act is to ensure that local governmental bodies conduct the people's business openly. So as we go through this discussion, I just want you to keep that in the back of your minds at all times, because everything that we discuss with regard to meetings and what is a legislative body and kind of the do's and don'ts and potential pitfalls of the Brown Act, this is really what we have to keep in mind, right? It's the intent of the law that actions be conducted openly. All right, so application of the Brown Act. Keep this in mind as well. The Brown Act only applies to meetings of local legislative bodies, right? Meetings of legislative bodies. You, as an INCO, are a legislative body covered under the Brown Act. Your individual neighborhood councils are not. So they are not subject to the Brown Act. Open and public, agenda requirements, et cetera, are set aside for the neighborhood councils. But you, as the INCO, you are a legislative body. Legislative bodies are include governing bodies as well as newly elected members. So that's a little bit different. So that's like a member of the council that has been elected but hasn't taken their seat yet. Appointed bodies, that would be, for example, members of our CAGs, Commission on Homelessness, et cetera. I think we have a planning commissioner here appointed. Standing committees as well, and we'll go into what those are throughout the presentation. Important to remember that legislative bodies do not include temporary advisory committees or what we would call ad hoc committees, typically composed of less than a quorum of a legislative body. They serve a limited purpose, they're not perpetual, and once their purpose is complete, they're dissolved. For example, if members of the Youth Coalition, the Oxnard Youth Coalition, just as an example, if they were part of this body and they wanted to go out and they wanted to survey, the neighborhood about how many cleanups should be done or something, that could be an ad hoc committee that's created. Once their purpose is done and they report back to the full governing body, they serve their limited purpose and then they are dissolved. Those committees are not subject to the Brown Act, so they're not considered legislative bodies. And I'm kind of powering through this first part, but it's just kind of the logistics of the basics to kind of get through to kind of the meat and potatoes of it. So a meeting, that is a congregation of a majority of the members of the legislative body at the same time and place to hear, discuss, or deliberate upon any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. So, third vice chair, second vice chair, fourth vice chair, and chair. You all get together, assuming that this was only a 5-member body. 4 of you would normally be a quorum. And you wanted to discuss, who's going to win the Super Bowl. Is it the Chiefs or the Eagles? That's not within your subject matter jurisdiction. You're not getting together to hear, discuss, or deliberate upon anything within your subject matter jurisdiction. You can do that. That is not a meeting, right? However, if again, this is a little bit different because it's INCO, and so a quorum of you is under your bylaws 11. But that aside, if you were only a 5-member body and you got together to discuss, how you felt about airport noise or something that is on your agenda, you would be having a meeting, having not noticed it, et cetera, potentially in violation of the Brown Act. So it's important to remember what a meeting is, right? Majority of the members of the body that are hearing or discussing or deliberating upon an item that is within your subject matter jurisdiction. Okay, there are exceptions to that. For example, individual contacts. So 2 of you can discuss even things that are within your subject matter jurisdiction, or you can attend a conference that addresses issues of general interest. You can attend meetings of another legislative body. I know I've seen a few of you at council meetings. That's totally fine. In each of these circumstances, or for social or ceremonial events, you can attend those as well. But it's still important to remember, even if you're attending those events, to kind of not even give off the appearance that you're meeting to discuss, items within your subject matter jurisdiction. Probably, you probably wouldn't have that issue with a legislative body that is this large. But say, for example, if you had only a 5-member, council or something, and 4 of them were all sitting together at a social event, and there were issues that were being discussed at that social event that might come before that legislative body, you probably wouldn't want to be sitting together at a social event like that, just to avoid the appearance of having a meeting outside of an open and published meeting. Okay, serial meetings, Captain Crunch. Adam did that. So serial meetings strictly prohibited. This is a use of a series of communications by a majority of members, directly or through intermediaries, where you discuss, deliberate, or take action on an item that's within your subject matter jurisdiction, and you don't notice it, right? You don't publish it. So here are the examples. There's a daisy chain or there's a hub and spoke, right? So maybe you don't all meet at the same place and discuss an item within your subject matter jurisdiction, but Diana talks to Amanda about how she might vote on something, and then Amanda talks to Christopher, and then Christopher talks to John Paul. Well, just because you weren't all in the same place, you've now, through that daisy chain, potentially you violated the Brown Act. The other way to do that is through the hub and spoke. So Diana contacts Amanda, and then Christopher, and then John Paul, and so forth. So you're the bad actor there, and you're violating the Brown Act, right? And the others, it may be unbeknownst to B, C, and D there, but this is another way to violate the Brown Act by having a serial meeting, even though you're not all in the same place. Email communications, this is very important, which is why I don't know, Adam, if you email the entire general membership at all or just coordinate with the chair, but if you were to email the entire legislative body to update them on an just something logistical, we would want them blind copied to avoid the reply all where, I agree, I concur, et cetera, because now you're agreeing to something outside an open and published meeting that's available to the public. So that's important to remember in email. Now this is new. Social media 54952.2B3A specifically prohibits directly responding to social media communications if that post is about a subject that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of that legislative body. So I'll give you a couple of, I'll give you just so you can see the difference. So if council member A posts about how they're running the LA Marathon and council member B likes that post, totally fine. The Oxnard City Council has absolutely nothing to do with the LA Marathon. However, if council member A were to post about, hey, give me your feedback on, this speed bump issue or something that's coming before the council, and then council member B goes and does the angry face emoji to that post, they have now violated the Brown Act under this new provision. So I caution you as members of the same legislative body from responding to each other's posts on social media. Again, this does not require that a majority have deliberated or responded. This could be one council member communicating on another's post or a member of any other legislative body. Well, let me correct that. Of the same legislative body. So if you posted your thoughts on something that's on your agenda tonight regarding the airport or something, and then Amanda, you thumbs upped it or down, I don't know if you can do a thumbs down on Facebook, can you? I don't know if you thumbs upped it, thumbs down it, did an angry face, whatever. You have now responded to it, and in reading the legislative history of this bill when it went into effect, it basically said that even though a thumbs up isn't necessarily you saying anything, it could be construed as you approving of the message that's being sent. So this is super important to remember, and this is new. That's new legislation. Okay, so other requirements. Generally, the Brown Act requires all regular and special meetings to be held within the jurisdiction, right? The jurisdiction of the governing body. However, teleconference meetings are permitted under the Brown Act. There's just special rules that apply to those, and we'll go over those in the next slides. And the stuff that's on the left of the screen, that's sort of the traditional sort of Brown Act rules, and then I'll go over what AB 361 is and why Jack Villa is able to appear remotely here tonight. The traditional Brown Act rules are that agendas have to be posted at all teleconference locations, and that each teleconference location would have to be identified on the agenda, and it would have to be accessible to the public, and then a quorum of the legislative body would have to meet within the jurisdictional boundaries. And I'll give you an example that's a real-world example. Councilmember Perello years ago was attending a convention and participated via teleconference in that meeting and literally had to post the notice on his hotel door and make it available to members of the public so that he can participate via teleconference. Those are the old rules. 361, AB 361, the governor signed into law during the pandemic. And it allowed, during a state of emergency and then a locally declared emergency, where state or local officials imposed or recommended social distancing measures, and there were findings made by the legislative body that meeting remotely was necessary because there were imminent risks to health or safety of attendees. That members of the legislative body are able to participate in meetings virtually, right? Because again, you didn't want, you kind of wanted to lessen the number of people that were in a room at the same time to prevent the spread of COVID, and so those rules were relaxed. The traditional Brown Act rules were relaxed. And under AB 361, agendas didn't have to be posted at all teleconference locations. Hence, Jack doesn't have to post, if he's at home or somewhere else, doesn't have to post the agenda there and make it available to the public. So that's basically the relaxed rules. Now, I will say, and in the next slide we'll go over this, we're only going to be dealing with 361 for the rest of this month because the declared emergency is going to be over on February 28th. And when that occurs, we no longer have a local emergency that is declared. But people still will be, members of legislative bodies will still be able to participate remotely. It's just a couple of different things to keep in mind. Under AB 2449, which is effective January 1 of this year, it will allow members to participate during emergency circumstances or for just cause. And at least a quorum have to participate from a single location. So, but there are some rules there. The just cause provision can only be used 2 times per calendar year. So you couldn't every single meeting say, oh, I want to participate remotely, and so because I don't have a babysitter or whatever, so yes, you can participate remotely each time. That's not the way it's going to work. It's limited to 2 times per year. However, you still have emergency circumstances where if it truly is an emergency, you basically let the legislative body know in advance of the meeting, and as soon as it's practicable, and even that could be at the beginning of the meeting, right? And then you've got to briefly state the reasons for you participating virtually. You don't have to go into great detail. If you got a medical issue or something, certainly you don't have to go into any details like that, but you have to briefly state why you have to participate remotely. And then you may be able to do that for under emergency circumstances or for just cause. But AB 361, again, is going away, and that is what has allowed members of our legislative bodies to participate remotely, and it's being replaced with AB 2449. And there are some more nuances there, and if there are specific questions as we start to have, certainly we'll be operating under these rules with your next meeting. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or again, ask Adam and we'll answer for you. Okay, so agenda requirements. So all of you are familiar with agendas. You have them in your hand. You have to prepare them for every meeting. Under the Brown Act, for a regular meeting, the agenda has to be posted 72 hours in advance of the meeting. For a special meeting, 24 hours in advance of the meeting. And then there are other nuanced rules with emergency meetings and adjournment and stuff. But those are the general rules. As you may know, we have our own local sunshine ordinance. So again, Brown Act rule, 72 hours for a regular meeting, 24 hours for a special meeting. We go beyond that. I like to use the phrase that the Brown Act is a floor, not a ceiling, so we can go above it, which we have. So for city council meetings, those agendas are posted 12 days in advance of a regular meeting and 7 days in advance of a special meeting. And for all legislative bodies that are not the city council, those agendas are posted 7 days in advance of the meeting, whether they're regular or special. And again, there are some provisions of our code that allow for other items to go on an agenda, outside of that time period, so long as they comply with the Brown Act. But that's the general rule. But if, for example, there is an agenda that's posted 12 days in advance of the meeting, and then some severe storm emergency or something happens, and we have to agendize that item 24 hours in advance of the meeting or 2 days in advance of the meeting or something, we can still do that. And the provisions of our city code allow for something like that. Or if there's a grant opportunity that comes up between the time the agenda is posted and the meeting, then that agenda might get amended to include that item as well. Okay, agenda requirements. Agendas should always include a brief description of each of the items of business being discussed, and that's just an example of what a brief description is. Obviously, you have brief descriptions in your agenda, but the whole point is if you're a member of the public and you want to participate in a discussion, you should be able to look at the agenda and know what the heck is going before the legislative body to decide whether or not you want to participate in that discussion. So you've got a subject, you've got a recommendation. Typically, you'll have the legislative body as well as some contact information from the staff, and that recommendation there is that the Oxnard Housing Authority approve and authorize the chairperson to approve to enter into a contract for a specific amount, says who it's with, etc. So we try to keep, certainly they should be brief, but they should, again, put the public on notice of what the legislative body is considering. So there it's got who the legislative body is, what the price of the contract is for, who the vendor is, and then this one even goes further and goes into the appropriation of funds and everything else. But at the very least, you should have the first part of that sentence there in an agenda description. Okay, no action or discussion on items that are not posted on the agenda. So for a regular meeting, we always have a agendized item for items that are not on the agenda. And then we have to take public comment on every item that is on the agenda. But we have to be mindful of going into detailed discussions on items that are not agendized. Again, keeping in mind that the purpose at the heart of the Brown Act is to ensure that the public can participate in these discussions. So, you wouldn't want to have a 20-minute discussion or 15-minute discussion on an item that is not on the agenda that one member of the legislative body just brings up, and then another chimes in on, and then another, and then before you know it, you're off agenda. And I'll go through the rest of these quick. You can briefly respond to questions or comments made by the public. Again, brief, or you can ask a staff person a clarifying question or to make a brief announcement. But you wouldn't want to go into detailed discussions. And then we already went over this. Public has a right to speak on any item on an agenda. If it's on a non-agendized public comment, any item that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. Briefly, there are times when typically wouldn't be the INCO or a CAG, but the council goes into closed session. And the general rule is that all matters have to be discussed in open unless there's a specific statutory authority to discuss something in closed session. So that would be litigation, if there's a threat of litigation, anticipated litigation, or the need to initiate litigation, real estate negotiations to discuss price and terms, public employment, labor negotiations, grand jury testimony, or for public security purposes. Brown Act provides two distinct types of civil remedies. That's an injunction. And then there's the action to void past acts of a legislative body. So that is where the Brown Act has been violated and action has been taken. There is a remedy to basically undo that action potentially if there's a Brown Act violation that has occurred when that action is taken. Criminal penalties, again, these are sort of in more egregious circumstances, but a violation of the Brown Act is a misdemeanor. If the public official attends a meeting where the action is in violation of the Brown Act and where there is the specific intent to deprive the public of information to which the official knows or has reason to know the public is entitled to under the Brown Act. So these are sort of more severe cases. You can Google around and I'm sure find instances where criminal penalties have been levied, but we do have to notify you that the civil remedies as well as the criminal penalties for violation of the Brown Act. I'll also tell you if you're interested in a more detailed description, just Google Open and Public, a guide to the Ralph M. Brown Act, and you'll find a PDF of this, a very, very detailed discussion on the Brown Act. So this is still the resource that I use. I have it with me, carry it with me whenever I go to a meeting. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, to look up Open and Public, a guide to the Ralph M. Brown Act. And I don't know how much time we have, but
He's a policeman. B. Bomar or her husband?
Adam, blame Adam. Blame the team. If you have any questions, I could probably have time for a couple. I'm not sure what your schedule is.
Let's open it up to the floor first, and then we'll let the executive board go. Does anybody on the floor or on the internet have any questions? Did Jack raise his hand?
There are no hands raised currently.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Doug.
Sorry, Jason. Any complaint that you feel or violation of the Brown Act is sent to the district attorney's office, is that correct, Ventura County?
So that is one possibility. I mean, you could always notify, the city attorney that, hey, you think that a Brown Act violation has occurred, but you could contact the DA for that, yeah.
Okay, so either the city attorney, you can go to the city attorney, or you go to the DA, correct?
Well, so what I'm saying is, if you suspect that a Brown Act violation has occurred, you could always contact our office, and we can talk about it and figure out what's going on. If you're looking for some sort of enforcement action, you could go to the district attorney. Yeah.
And it's my understanding there's never been a successful prosecution of a Brown Act violation. Is that true?
That I don't know.
There has never been a successful prosecution of a Brown Act violation. So it's basically a paper tiger. But I think it's just supposed to be that meetings can't be held in secret, everything's open to the public. So that's the spirit of the act. But in terms of actual enforcement of the act, there's actually never been any enforcement of the Brown Act.
Okay. Anybody else?
Go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry.
So, go ahead, jump
Oh,
on.
no, ladies first, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that on page 13 of the presentation, on the second column, it says AB 316. I just want to clarify that
It's
means
361.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that for the public, as well as on item 14, when in regards to AB 361 and AB 2449, obviously those expire, or 361 expires at the end of the emergency. However, the city can create its own ordinance, correct, to allow teleconference and to kind of extend the provisions of that bill, correct?
So AB 361 is specifically tied to the statewide emergency. Once that goes away, we are no longer operating in AB 361. From there on, we're operating under AB 2449, which would not require a council-adopted ordinance necessarily. It is just simply what's allowed. It's codified in the Brown Act.
Okay.
And so that's more of a procedural thing, is if you had just cause or you had an emergency circumstance where you had to participate virtually, you would raise that as soon as possible with Adam, with the chair, and then that would go on record to say, Amanda, you may participate virtually, and then for I keep confusing the just cause with the other. So for just cause, you'd be limited to 2 meetings per calendar year to be able to do that. But then if you had an emergency circumstance, you would be able to participate virtually under those circumstances as well.
Okay, so I understand that for just cause, it's the 2 meetings, and that's 2 meetings per person. That's not to say that the 2449, we would still be able to have like Zoom participation for the public, but as the elected, we would have to only follow like the just cause by missing 2 meetings per just cause. But we're still allow participation is what I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
Teleparticipation from the public.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then the last one, I apologize, on slide 16, the sunshine ordinance, that's specific to Oxnard City, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted that clarification because I know that in general, like you said on slide 15, the 72 hours, but I was unaware of the sunshine ordinance, but that's only for bodies governed by the Brown Act. Like for neighborhood councils, since we're not Brown Act required, sorry, I apologize. The posting of the agendas does not have to follow these particular ordinances, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
For the neighborhood councils, that's correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Go ahead, John Paul.
I just have two questions. One of them is a person in violation of the Brown Act if they didn't know the rules before they were sworn in?
Are they in violation? Well, you'd have to actually violate the act, but yeah, ignorance of the law is not a.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it was
defense.
about, but yeah, if they didn't know, if they weren't given the rules or anything about the Brown Act, because not a lot of people know about the Brown Act from the get.
So let me just, I'll back into that a little bit. So for elected officials, generally, once you, in that time period between when you're actually sworn in and when you're, elected to be an official, you're still subject to the Brown Act. And just because you don't know about the nuances of the Brown Act or what may or may not apply, you're still subject to it. So you could still potentially violate it, even having, being unaware of what those provisions are.
Okay, my other question is, if a person runs a social media site, like news site, are they in violation of the Brown Act if they don't bring up a subject regarding any of the, the subjects?
So the rules under the social media rules are, if an individual that is a member of a legislative body makes a post about something that's within their subject matter jurisdiction, and another member of that same legislative body responds to that post, favorably, unfavorably, whatever, they have potentially violated the Brown Act. The person that commented, not the initial poster. Now, if you, on your own Facebook page and your own private groups and on Twitter or whatever, you can make, statements, stating your position on things, but where there are potential issues is where other members of that same legislative body respond to that post.
Thank you for clearing that up for us, sir. I really appreciate that.
But for clarification on that same issue, if you are commenting on something that's already on the agenda and the agenda has been posted, wouldn't sending something out into the public, especially when you do have followers that are, let's say, this legislative body, couldn't that potentially be a Brown Act violation because you are actually asking for and inquiring in for comments on that issue that's already agendized?
Only if, the member that responds to those posts would potentially violate the Brown Act. But the posting of a matter that's within your subject matter jurisdiction to get public participation would not necessarily violate the Brown Act.
Okay.
So
We were
in fact,
having a discussion about it before.
Yeah, in the legislative history, and I can share it with you, Chair Belsley. Like the legislative history of it goes into how the purpose of posting on social media in part is to solicit feedback from members of the public to figure out what they think because they're your constituents or whatever. I'm talking about in terms of like a council member or a member that's of a body that's making decisions on behalf of their constituents.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yep.
Is there anybody else online that, or in the members want to have any more questions answered or have any more questions to be answered? Yeah. Nope. Okay.
Okay.
I think,
thank you
so much.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Okay. Item 2, Robert's Rules of Order, that the INCO general membership discuss neighborhood council meetings, best practices, and Robert's Rules of Order. And Jack is going to be talking on this subject. And so I'll go ahead and open up the floor to Jack.
All right. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Adam, did you print out that that outline for the members?
No, I did not.
Okay. Is it possible for you to post it or put it up on the screen? I think.
Yeah, hold on one sec.
What I'm going to do is go through some of the the Roberts rules and some of the items you should have in mind when you run your meetings in your neighborhoods, and some of the duties for the chairs. And there's a few tips. This outline doesn't cover everything, but it should cover at least 97% of any issues that might come up in your meeting, or prevent you from having any issues coming up in your meeting. As you'll see, the Robert's Rules of Order, the duties chairs are to, one, open meetings and follow the agenda items to ensure quorum, recognize members and the speakers in your meeting, and recognize motions and place them for vote. And then refuse motions that are not have to do with your within the scope of your conversation or your business, and they enforce. The chair always enforces the decorum and order of your meetings, and expedites the meeting and business, and decides all questions of the order, and responds to all inquiries, and authenticates any documents. That could be anything from laws or photographs or what have you. Or even statements. They authenticate those documents, and then they're responsible for closing the meetings. I won't get into all the motions, but usually when someone makes a motion, there has to be a second, and then the floor. After there's a second, there should be a debate on the floor. Now, sometimes there might be an amendment to the motion, which is fine. You can vote on the motion to change the original motion, or you could just have the original presenter of the motion to change his motion, and then get a second, and then open it up for debate. And then the chair is responsible for making sure everyone has a say in the motion, and then it'll go up for vote, and the chair will restate the motion and then ask for votes, either for or against the motion. But the one of the tips for each chair, you don't have to go through this, but this will keep you from running to any problems in your meetings. So these tips are more important than anything else, and that's to ensure the meetings are fair, efficient, democratic, and orderly. Make sure there's no cross conversations within the meeting. No one's speaking out of turn. Only the person that's recognized should be speaking, and the chair should allow all the voices and opinions to be heard, even though it's different, might be different from yours. All voices should be heard, and that you follow the agenda. Sometimes the agenda can be amended. That's up to the chair. Sometimes there might be time constraints, or you might have a guest speaker that wants to leave early or might not be able to stay late. So you adjust your agenda to adjust your agenda to any changes the chair can make at the time of the meeting. Allow your group or your meeting to there should be a flow, and you shouldn't over command your audience, and then make sure you recognize members who asked to speak. and then let all members speak before allowing a second time. And then make sure to regroup the discussion if it gets out of the away from the subject matter. So sometimes when you have a discussion in the neighborhood meetings, the discussion will get off subject. So you're the chair and you should redirect the meeting back to the subject that's on the agenda. And then make sure you're respectful and courtesy to all who attend the meetings, and just give each speaker their undivided attention. And kind of sometimes meetings, they get emotional on certain issues. Some residents might get upset. They have a issue that's means a lot to them, and they have an emotional response to some of the issues. So you got to keep the kind of the meeting from getting too heated. But mostly just make sure the minority is ensured a voice and the majority is ensured the final authority to carry out whatever decision or motion is made. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, just out there, let me know.
Does anybody have any questions for Jack? How about the executive board? You, go ahead.
I just hope you feel better, Jack.
What was that?
I just hope he feels better.
Okay. Anybody have a question for Jack? Oh, yep, we have one.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Ronald Arwejo, East Village Neighborhood. I'd like to thank Jack Velia for doing Robert's rules tailored specifically towards neighborhood councils. I know for mine, obviously you'd like some type of order so that everyone is heard and everyone feels that they have a chance to be heard. As chair, you should try to move it along and try to interpret what they're trying to do or trying to say. And I know for us, at least in regards to timing, our neighborhood has decided not to go any earlier than 6:30 and never to go later than 8 p.m. So we actually set a beginning and end time, and it might be helpful to put a time amount for each agenda item. So that's what I like to say to let them know why I'm cutting them off. Usually I try to give everyone at least one question for any presenter, but it's a way so that no agenda item goes on for too long. You keep them interested enough. And so those are a couple of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next. I can't see. Wait. Did you want to say something, Jack, first?
Yes, I kind of just remember that your audience, your meeting that you conduct, every meeting is kind of different, and you might have a heated issue, and then there's others that are, not as heated, and you got to kind of keep the pulse of the meeting and your members or your residents, and your residents more than me or any other chair, and so each chair, this is just a guideline, and to kind of remember and keep in the back of your head. And this is a guideline that most organizations use. Everything from little leagues and PTAs and unions and whatever organization it is, they use this as an outline to run their meetings so it runs smoothly. And this is actually done for the, especially for the new chairs that haven't used Robert's rules.
Can you have another questioner?
Yeah, hello, Tim Chingrass, Rio Lindo neighborhood. I was just wondering where we could get a copy of that, as we're having our election meeting on the 16th, and I may or may not be here next month. But if I'm not, the new chair would probably like to see that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Chair, I can send the document out to all the chairs in attendance.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thank you, Adam.
Any more questions or comments? Okay, let's move on. Okay, subject item 3, Oxnard Airport, that the INCO general membership discuss issues and concern about the Oxnard Airport. One thing that it doesn't look like we're going to be able to vote today, but we have the opportunity now to, the Airport Planning Advisory Committee wants some neighborhood chairs to sign up for their for this advisory committee. And we would like to form or could talk about possibly forming a standing advisory committee for this, for the INCO, and then maybe have some, the people who are elected by this planning advisory committee be part of that board. But to get more information and be more precise about the information, I'm going to have Walt and Ben come up here and present a couple things so we can open up the discussion after they talk to us about it and what they're looking for.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board and the general membership. I'm Walter Haggett. I'm chair of the Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council, and this has been Di Benedetto. He's chair of our Transportation Committee. The reason we think there's a good purpose to have a standing committee is about 2 years ago, I was approached as the chair of Neighborhood Council, along with other neighborhood councils, by some members of Channel Island who had gone to the airport and asked them about the questions about flyovers of the neighborhood. And he found out that neighborhood councils could have some effect. And so we've been working for 2 years. We've been to almost every advisory meeting, every authority meeting that have oversight over the airport. We've also been to many board meetings of the Board of Supervisors, whatever, to find out how we can have the airport be more responsive to the community. And what we have found is that it's very complicated, that the FAA, the federal the aviation is involved with the tower. There is a, the pilots have their own sort of a fraternity of, that they feel that the airport should operate in a certain way. But what's been happening over the last several years is that we went at it from the flyovers of our neighborhood, which sometimes can be every 2 minutes. And we said, well, why is this happening? And there's noise issues and all that. And we started to dig really deep into what was going on. And we found out that there's many, many issues with Oxnard Airport that have happened over the years. So I wanted to go over these in a little bit of history. So I'm going to go with the history of the Oxnard Airport, some issues that concerning the neighborhoods, the opportunities for public involvement, and then to request the INCO have a standing committee, because these issues, if you look at the picture on the right, this is what Oxnard Airport looked like looking southwest in probably late 40s, and there was nothing there. There was no development or whatever, and that this is a huge change over the years. So go to the next slide. Oops, wrong one. So the history of the Oxnard Airport is that it was county-owned, was started in 1934. In 1941, it was taken over by the Navy for the war. It was put back into Ventura County's control in 48. Scheduled airline service actually started in 1946 with Southwest Airlines flying DC-3s, but passenger service ended on July 8th of 2010 when United stopped flying to LAX. We were a hub for taking passengers to LAX to take flights to other places, and that whole process, the hub and spoke, has changed completely. The airport had 51,961 passengers boarding what they call enplanements in 2008, and that was above the 10,000, it was required to designate it as a primary commercial service airport. But in 2019, Oxnard Airport was downgraded to a regional general aviation airport because there were only 19 enplanements instead of 15,000. The 2005 master Oxnard Airport master plan I read last night had predicted 60,000 enplanements by 2020. So obviously, when things changed in 2010, this was changed the whole complexion of the airport. So here are some of the issues that have come from that. Almost all of the activity at Oxnard Airport is now touch and go landings. Touch and goes are done by flight schools, people who are training or have to make certain hours for certification. So they come in and they will do loops around, sometimes as many as 10 or 12 loops, and sometimes we'll have as many as 5 planes in the pattern at the same time. And so this has created a lot of problems for the community because there hasn't been a lot of control of where the planes go. So then, of course, we have the noise issue. These are old single-engine aircraft, some of them from the 60s and 70s, and when they take off, they have to be at full throttle and at maximum, fuel richness. So they're coming over our neighborhoods, Oxnard Dunes, Oxnard Shores, Channel Island, Via Marina, at very high levels of sound, sometimes in excess of 75 decibels, some of them is close to 100, and we've measured some of that ourselves, and that's in violation of the Oxnard City Code. Then there's the safety issues. We've had several crashes. You might have remembered the one into the fence over on Ventura Road. That gentleman lost control at 6,500 feet and glided all the way down. And he was a fairly seasoned pilot, I would guess. He came across the airport, went around over by, across where the Boys and Girls Club is, went over across Vaughn's, and he thought he could make it, but basically he crossed Ventura Road on a Sunday afternoon at about 3 feet and hit the fence. And very lucky that didn't have any other casualties. But there was also that same month before a pilot died in Camarillo, crashing on takeoff. And the other thing that we found was lead pollution. We found that many airports, that these planes are the only engines that are allowed in the country with leaded fuel. And most of these are older planes doing the touch and go landings. And so about 10 years ago, studies were started in airports around, especially up in Northern California. And one in particular tested, I think, 17,000 students and actually had blood samples that found that they had increased levels of lead, in some cases very high levels. The other thing that happened, as you can see from that picture, is development. Is the county and the city runs the airport, but the city has control over the area around the airport, and there hasn't really been a lot of coordination about this. And there's a lot of developments that are going to, and Ben's going to get into that affect us. And this is one of the things I think that the INCO needs to be involved, is because this disconnect between the city, the airport, the county, when it comes to development around the airport is very important. And then the financial. These touch and go landings are from many other airports. We only have a couple of flight schools here, but coming from Santa Monica, from Van Nuys, from Whiteman, from all over coming here because it's empty and we have a tower. And so they're able to communicate with the tower. We make almost no money. We can't charge landing fees because the FAA won't allow that. So financially, it doesn't produce anything for the city. Now, they combine the two airports and they say, oh, we're making a profit, but I think if you really look closely, it's not really financially viable. So some of the community involvement things, since the end of commercial operations, there's been somewhat of a lack of oversight, and the airport has really deteriorated. You probably won't go to the terminal because there's no reason to go there. But there was really no plan for the future. If you look at some of the oversights and some of the things we've looked at for the last 25 years, it's just been business as usual, and they basically said, hey, we have a lot of operations because of touch and go landings. They consider each loop as an operation, and they keep saying they have more and more, but there's no money coming in from that. So the question is, we need a serious discussion on what serves the best interest for the community. Right now, the current oversight of the airport does not include adequate public input. We have been beating our head against the wall, frankly, for 2 years. And we get our 3 minutes, and we bring up many things, and we are very, we dig into a lot of these issues and know, a lot about the EIRs and the master plans and things that have gone on. And so we've tried to bring that to the discussion. So right now, there's the development around the airport. Sorry, I have to go back one slide here. Go back here. Oops, where am I going? I did. Okay, let me go. Well, there we go. So we have not had a lot of adequate input, but we worked very hard because they came up with they're going to have a new noise study. It's an $800,000 study. It's sometimes a multi-year study on the noise for the airport. And we have fought to have a position on the Planning Advisory Committee. Now, this is just for a noise abatement study, so doesn't include all the other things, even though some of it touches on it. But they have asked us to apply. And I have a feeling that they're only going to have 20 members, and those are going to be politicians and other people. They may pick 3 neighborhood council chairs to be on there. It'll probably be some from Oxnard Dunes, Oxnard Shores, Channel Island, Via Marina that are most affected by the noise. However, they might pick someone else. I suggest people put their names in, just so that everybody knows that we're interested. But where INCO comes in, the standing committee, is that we will be able to report back to that committee. But I think that the committee should be more inclusive. When you listen to what Ben says about what we're dealing with on these other issues, I think that whatever happens at the airport right now, Santa Monica just announced that they're going to abandon the airport in 2029. And it may take another 5 years to develop. So whatever happens, if we ever get a plan as we get for the future, or decide what happens with this asset, which now Santa Monica is saying they have the great asset, or what's going to, in Camarillo, the people have said we're not going to have commercial flights, but that was because the community got involved and said we're going to have a general aviation airport. And so what happens here is something that I think is going to be a committee that could be for years, because that's how long it takes to have the action for the FAA and the county and everything else and all the things that are involved. So I think that a standing committee would be something that would be useful. So I'm going to turn it over to Ben for getting to some of the more specific.
Can I ask a quick question? Can you tell people how to apply for that position? Because I think
yes, we have some resources at the end. But if you go to the Ventura County Airport website, it's right up in front. It says sign up for the Part 150 study in Oxnard, and it'll give you a form to fill out. Okay. So you can do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time, and INCO members. There's a ton of information here, and I'm going to try to do this in a way that I don't kill anybody and that we get the most important stuff out of the way. Walt made mention of the 150 study that was done in 1998. That is the study that is on the FAA website. If you go to the FAA website and look up rules and regulations basically operating in the public for Oxnard Airport, it'll reference the 1999 study. The new study will take the place of that particular study. That being said, that the real estate disclosures that are given in the natural hazard packages when you buy or sell property relates to the airport if you're within the airport area, and that study is what makes the rules for the NHD. So if you buy a house and it's in the flight line, it'll tell you it's in the flight line, tell you where it is, it'll reference you to the FAA site, And the way the airport is supposed to operate is under those rules. So if they change the flight pattern, they're violating their own operation. So it's important that the community be involved. This is a copy of the 1998 study. It was never approved by the County Board of Supervisors. It was accepted as completed by the FAA, which was a requirement for the grant money to be paid for the study. So we have a study here that the FAA is saying this is how the airport operates. And by the way, these are my notes pages. The study is 324 pages. We've read it, gone through it, and these are the pages that are most important to the community. So with that, the County Board of Supervisors did allow the county airport land use package to be created from this report that the County Board of Supervisors didn't sign off on. So you have airport land use regulations based on the 1998 study that have nothing to do with the development that's gone on around the airport because the County Board of Supervisors didn't sign off on it. Now, we can supply you with a link to the 324-page study. And I suggest that you download it and at least have it, because over the next 2 years to 3 years, which is what it's going to take to complete the new 150 study, that will outline the flight patterns, noise acceptable use, and development or potential development around the airport, and it'll create a new airport land use study. So, getting on to, watch this. This is a slide from the Airport Authority. We started about 2.5 years ago dealing with the airport over noise. The 1998 study said when an aircraft, light aircraft, left Oxnard Airport, it would turn left or right prior to the Edison Canal and fly north of Willie. And this is what we have. And I'm not real good with this, but we all know that the canal, it's so hard to see this stuff, that this is just a complete violation. And it's been going on. And so we went to the airport and we said, what's up with this? This was about 2.5 years ago. I bought my house in Oxnard Shores in 2000. So I know what the airport was. I know, I'm a real estate broker. I'm retired now, but I know what the NHD said. I know what the flight pattern was when I bought it. And so we went to them and they said, well, you know, we have a lot of touch and goes and all of that. We have 47 flight schools utilizing Oxnard Airport for touch and go training. Now they go to other airports as well, but as Walt said, there's a tower here. So that it's much better training. And I get it, but these are inexperienced pilots, and public safety is a part of this issue. So the real thing is the last noise abatement study in 1998 had 7 meetings that are the PAC meetings. That's Planning Action Committees, which is the 20-member committees that Walt talked about that the airport will be assembling. And they will meet, the PAC members will meet with the Kaufman Associates who are doing the study, and they did the 1998 study, so they know what's going on here. And after each of those meetings, there was supposed to be a public meeting. I went through the packet in the 150 study from 1998, and they're required to have meeting dates, meeting notices, and sign-in sheets. There was one meeting out of the 7 that the PAC had where they met with the community. At that meeting were 13 people. 8 of those people were PAC members. 5 were members of the public. So the short of it is, the last time we had a 150 study, 324 pages of it, that laid out the operation for the airport and the airport land use plan, along with a general plan for the airport area, we had 1 meeting for the public and 5 people attended. then I think that drives home the need to have representation. Now, that being said, at a meeting, we were on Zoom, I was on Zoom with the airport authority, and our council person in District 1, Bert Perillo, amended at our request a motion to approve the new study, and the amendment was that the neighborhood councils would be involved. I'm a past neighborhood council chair in Studio City and a number of other community organizations, and this is just screaming for the public to be involved. So that's why we're requesting this. And the next, let's talk about the development a little bit. Another slide for that. So this is the general area. The noise abatement and the 150 study covers down to what would be about a block and a half south of 5th, right here, right in that area. This parcel right here is where North Shore Development has been entitled. It's at 5th and Harbor. The developer went broke. He sold the entitlement to another development company, which does plan to develop that neighborhood. And they've got some infrastructure and underground power and a number of other things. So it's been entitled, it's in the works. That was rezoned. The 150 study said, it was parkland, by the way, and it was rezoned by the city with approval of the county. By the way, this report was not in anybody's archives. The Department of Airports or the authority or the advisory archives for 23 years. Nobody knew. All of the development that has been approved was done in the face of this study without knowledge of this study by the city and or the county board of supervisors. So not laying blame, just kind of putting what the situation is. So the North Shore development, which is at the end of the runway on the west side of the canal right here, was entitled High Density Residential and rezoned from parkland. This area right in here, which is in the noise abatement area, was zoned Airport Business Park. And city rezoned it high residential. There's a development that's been entitled, it's called Portofino, and they'll start construction soon. The area basically at the end of the dunes along Harbor, there are two developments. One is the Anacapa development, and one is the Avalon development, and one of them, I'm not sure, one of them is entitled and the other is proposed. But the point is that it's in an area that shouldn't be developed. The last but not least is the Teal Club development, which is along the north end of the runway. That is a proposed development. There was an EIR, which was completed at the first of last year, and public comment was due by March 15th of last year. Public commented. City said, okay, 90 days, we'll give you our response to public comments and we'll move on with whether it gets approved or not. City put off dealing with public comments till the end of the year, last year. And I don't know at this point what time of the year we're going to see those comments. But the problem with the Teal Club development is in the 1998 study, the old Teal Club properties, which are on Little Farm Road at the northeast end of the runway, their sound study showed that they could not mitigate the sound below city, county, and state requirements for the existing population, homes, and residents in that neighborhood, the old Teal Club development, what you will see now at that corner of the runway. So the recommendation from the 150 study was that the county purchase that property because they can't live there safely. I don't think anybody's ever been told that lives in Old Teal Club. This wasn't available. And the city and the county approved all the development around the airport without knowledge of this report and this study, which is inexcusable. And it's a health hazard. So there are health issues included in this, and they go beyond that. They go to lead. We'll talk about that in a second. But now they have a EIR and a year-long withhold on moving forward on that EIR at the city, Department of Building and Safety. And now we know that right next door to that can't be mitigated and is a health hazard, and the city should have bought the land, or the county should have bought the land. So what are we going to do at Teal Club? 900 homes, another school, and a school board, or a school department building on that site. So that's a real problem. That really needs to be looked into. So Walt mentioned a study about lead. And there's an airport in Santa Clara, Reed Hillview Airport, that they tested the children within 1.5 miles of the airport, any of the schools, because they have prolonged exposure. It's a general aviation airport, just like ours is, and it operates pretty much the same way. They found lead levels in children higher in these schools than they found in the Michigan water issue. Higher. So, there was a motion by the County Board of Supervisors in Santa Clara to close the airport. And there's a lawsuit against that order, so the fight goes on with that particular situation. But given that, and the simple fact that Soria School is smack dab in the middle of what was rezoned from Airport Business Park to put the school there, and will become the Portofino development when they start building. Now, the problem with that is the neighborhood right next to it, Seaview Estates, that area, along with where the school is, used to contain aircraft fuel, oil, all kinds of aircraft industry stuff. And as far as we know, the site was never cleaned up when they put the school there. At this very moment, once a month, the EPA is testing water for lead within a stone's throw of that school. And their new development, which has been entitled, is going to be built right there. So that's one issue. We sent a letter in July of 21, we sent a letter, our committee, sent a letter to the 5 principals and vice principals of the 5 schools within 1.5 miles of the airport. We sent it to their PTAs, we sent it to the school board members, and we sent it to a couple of board of trustees that we were able to get information on. And they ignored us. We pointed out the study. We merely asked that they look into the issue and come up with whether they think they should look at it or not. This is a copy of the letter. I can give you all these if you need them. And they ignored us. So that was July. So then and we gave them links to the study and all of that stuff. So since they ignored us in July, in October, I sent a letter to the airport authority. The airport authority is basically the airport staff. And they make out the agenda as the secretary for the Airport Advisory Committee and the Airport Authority Board. And I'll get to those in just a minute. But the important thing is that they would take any public information and turn it over to both of those committees, which are empowered, covered by the Brown Act report. Actually, in the Airport Authority, you got 2 board supervisor members. So I sent them a letter and a copy of the letter that we didn't hear from anybody, along with the 22 recipients, and I asked that they put it on the agenda for the advisory committee and for the authority board. 3 days later, I got a letter back from a staff person that said that the airport director had passed along the link to the lead studies that we quoted to the chairs of the authority and to the advisory board, but did not request what I had asked that they request or give any of the other board members of either one of those boards a heads up on any of it. The copy of the letter that I sent to the director to request those things, I copied the 22 original people, school board members, principals, vice principals, PTAs. They blocked me. All of them had blocked me. So the school board doesn't care. They just don't. They've been noticed. It's 23. This was July of 21. So we got a problem there. And you know, you may think it's alarmist, but it's really possible given the amount of flights we have, and they are flying leaded fuel, and there is already, we know, issues with residue and fuel remnants and that kind of stuff in the ground. I don't think it's unreasonable to test the kids. So, you know, that's another thing that, you know, the community can get behind if they so desire to.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate you guys providing us all this information. Is it possible to send the letters that you've sent as well as some of this information to Adam to disseminate to everyone? Because I know I would really like to read it. I know I've talked to a couple individuals about this problem in the past, but that would be really helpful because then we can work with in INCO as well as work with the city to try to come up, as well as we can send out the link for the individuals who are interested in applying to the commission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah, we can get
perfect.
you all that stuff. And I
Awesome.
really think that if we can put a committee together
So-
and work with those people that are going to be on the PAC committee, as
Yes.
well as the committee really should be an interface between the community organizations, the neighborhood councils, and the authority, the advisory, and the city council, as well as the county board of supervisors.
Yes.
We had talked to we're blue in the face with the airport.
Yeah, no, I can understand, and I definitely hear everything that you guys are saying. I want you to know that. This is something that we have as an executive board spoken about establishing subcommittees, which I will be talking about during my executive board report. And I definitely think that this could be one that we can utilize to address this problem and to really work within the city, the county, and the airport boards. So I know personally, like I would love to talk to you guys more after so I can see how as a board and as INCO we can get engaged.
Sure.
So thank you.
Are you almost done?
Yeah, I am almost done. It's just one last section.
Okay.
And I'll make it quick. The advisory, there are the two boards, the advisory board and the authority board. They have two different sets of bylaws. The advisory board is supposed to deal with issues within the community as well as staff reports from the airport on various things of expansion or improvement or, you know, leases or, you know, whatever it might be. But the key to this is that they are supposed to deal with the community. Well, I've been on their Zoom meetings for 2 years, and I can tell you, when you cut off public comment because we don't have any more time, it's getting late, you violated the Brown Act. Mm-hmm. When you appoint somebody to the board a month before you grant new leases on the hangars that owns a hangar and votes on it, you've committed another issue. When it is astounding to me, the incompetence of the advisory board. The airport staff, again, is their chair, not their chair, but their secretary and makes the agenda. They met on a Monday. The authority that they report to meets on Thursday. So you've got a 72-hour window to create a proper posting from one committee to another. However, the airport just moved that the advisory committee will meet at noon instead of the evening, saying, well, some people work at night. Now remember, this is the only committee that needs to hear from the public. And meet on the same day that the authority meets at 7 o'clock. Now you tell me how that's going to work with the Brown Act. But they did it.
Right.
So we've got all kinds of problems that we need to deal with. They're having their first public meeting on the Oxnard Airport 150 study on March 21. It would be extremely helpful if we can get a committee together before then and get involved.
Okay, so my recommendation is get the word out to all the chairs to apply for the positions, and we'll send out the contact information, the link to that website.
Right.
And then next month, we can also talk about agendizing this. But before we do that, I'd like to get some feedback from the members to see what their feelings are on the matter and to whether or not they are interested in getting a standing committee. And if we do decide to do a standing committee, me personally, I believe that whoever gets approved by this planning advisory committee, they should also be allowed on our standing committee. So that means we would have to have less than 10 people on the committee. I mean, we can have as many as we want as long as it's not within a.
Yeah, I don't think you need more than 10, honestly.
Well, no, right, and I don't think we need that, but that's up to the membership to decide, not me. And so I want to get the membership's opinions on this, how far they want to go with it, if they have any other suggestions, stuff like that. So go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chris Bissonette from Blackstock South. One thing I wanted to let you guys know, and I don't know if you already knew this, that there were businesses along 5th Street right near the airport that used to make servo valves and brakes, and they did plating. And in their plating, they dumped everything into the ground. It was never processed. It went into the ground. The EPA came in and the company closed down and left town. It is extremely dangerous. The building right now is the Mexican consulate, and it is nasty. And I worked there, I know. Anyway, I'm very happy you guys are working on that. And willing to help.
Good.
Thank you. Hi, Doug.
Doug Portello, Cabrillo. I just want to thank Ben and Walt and all the folks who have been working on this issue diligently. They put a tremendous amount of work into this. I've been in communication and working with these gentlemen and others from the Fly Friendly Oxnard group and others in the beach communities. And I read the 1998 noise study, thanks to Ben. I had some nice bedside reading material to do with others, and Ben's really educated me. And I applied to be on that advisory committee myself because it's a real important issue, not only for the Cabrillo neighborhood, which is right adjacent to the airport, but the beach communities and for Oxnard as a whole. So some of the things that Ben didn't touch on are the fact that nobody wanted really in these communities to close the airport. This was not the goal.
We never asked for it.
So, this is a lot of the rhetoric and the politics involved that they're saying, well, they just want to close the airport, that the airport's valuable and all these other things. Well, the airport does serve value to the community. But what the folks want is mitigation of the issues that are affecting the quality of life and their health and safety. I'm a retired pediatric and neonatal respiratory therapist. So this is right in my wheelhouse when you're talking about lead poisoning and breathing in, toxic materials that can affect the growth and development of children. And you can't reverse that. So they've come up with an unleaded fuel that's high octane. They approved 2 companies to do that, but that's a process. And that takes time to get all that fuel in those tanks. And it's voluntary, much like the flight patterns to go over Woolley and go over Fifth Street, hang a right, and don't fly over the communities. That's all voluntary. So what's really being asked here is that these flight schools just, do the right thing for the community. And a lot of them are. And these guys have moved the needle in getting some of them to do the right thing. But when it's voluntary, it's a mixed, reaction. Now, in terms of the Teal Club project, that is something that's been a hot topic for us in Cabrillo. And I'll tell you, I've done surveys. We've had 3 of my 4 meetings in 1 year. Teal Club was on the agenda. And so when a lot of the information that Ben and Walt brought to light was in addition to some of the other concerns that we had over Teal Club, they want to put a K-8 school right at Patterson and Doris with offices, okay? Right. This is an area that they once deemed unsuitable for persons to live there. Now, when you talk about the Little Farm Road, those folks have been there generationally. The decibel level that's an ordinance with the city of Oxnard is 65 decibels, and they're well in excess of that on an ongoing basis generationally. And the human impact of those noise levels is significant. And then you're talking about the lead and getting those unleaded fuel in the pilots. That takes time that these children don't have. And you're going to have small children, K-8 at that school. Now, in 2015, the Board of Education extracted themselves from the Teal Club project. They bought that 25 acres, and they're going to march forward with that school. And it's only because of the Teal Club project that is most likely going to go through the process, which it is now, and get approved, just like Portino's already been approved. These are issues that really need involvement with us in the community to understand and have a voice in. Because if we don't speak to our city council and let them know and educate them about this, because that study was buried. And thanks to Ben and these folks, I was able to read that and understand that. So it's extremely important, as Ben has stated, that we have that. So this is something that's going to affect us greatly here in Oxnard. That North Shore project, that's where they told the pilots to turn right.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do that when there's people living there, right? And that was, they ignored what the study told them. So I'm hopeful that with this study, the new study, that it won't get ignored, it won't get, buried for 23 years, and that they can actually do things that do protect the health, welfare, and safety of our residents.
Thank you, Doug. And we do have another speaker on, it's Jack. Go ahead, Jack.
Yes, you talked about the the lead report levels and noise report levels. What levels should they be, and what levels are they at? The study or report.
Yeah, the city, state, and county level for acceptable is 65, and it's CNL. It's a little bit different than just your average noise rating. And the instruments that they'll place for the new study will calculate that in the CNL. But in in the old Teal Club Little Farm area, they exceeded 75 CNL. And they normally break it down into 5-point increments. So it's 50, 55, 60, 65, and then you fall somewhere in that range. So 65 is you go above 65 and it's a health hazard. Little Teal Club right now in the last study was 75, and they didn't see any way they could get it down into reasonable terms under their own, specs. We're taking dB levels in Oxnard Shores, and many times they're 80, 90, whatever. Under the old study, when we bought our houses, they did turn left or right prior to the canal. And you could hear them, but it wasn't terrible, and they weren't flying over our neighborhood. And that's what they're supposed to be doing now. But 2 years ago, we got this influx of these flight schools, and the advisory committee has a member on the committee that's I don't know if he's chairman, president, whatever he is, of CAU, which is the largest flight school operating out here. And they put him on the board. And it's like, that's a conflict of interest. There are 6 people making money on this airport in this entire county, and he's one of them. Now, he's a good guy. I even went on and said, look, if you're going to do this, you have to recuse yourself from anything financial on the airport, spending, budgets, that kind of stuff. Fell on deaf ears. I mean, if you're going to commit that kind of, heavy-handed thumb on the, little guy, don't put the people that are making money in the airport on the board. That's not right. So anyway, it's just a mess. And the key thing here is that the community get involved. And if the community wants that, fine, let the community say that. And then we'll all have a decision to make on whether we want to be here or not be here or whatever it is. But there was no community involvement in this last study. So,
Jack, do you have any further questions or comments?
No, just that I'm in favor of forming a committee and that we agendize this at the next meeting if we can.
And then,
To get any volunteers for the committee.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer.
Diane Delaney, I think, is waiting in line to speak.
Hi, Diana?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. I just wanted to, you asked, you wanted membership input. I'm with the Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council. I think it's imperative that we have a committee on this. There's so many elements here. It seems like there's something that affects everyone. You have the Teal Club project coming up. You have lead-based paint for children. Also, to add on the lead-based paint, you have to wonder about what that does to the environment and our wildlife. It's going, directly over the ocean. And, we have the nesting birds. I mean, there's so many issues to think about. Some of the things, and I really thank Walt and Ben, particularly Walt, because he took a really deep dive into this paperwork, which is, an enormous task. But it was a great presentation by both of them. But it makes me wonder, how do these projects get approved? And there's this paperwork that's been buried, and people haven't even thought about that. How do they even consider it a project that's right next to the airport? And, if we go back years, which I go back years, people were astounded that the Juan Soria elementary school right there on 5th Street got approved. Nobody could really understand that, and there were a lot of people that were very fearful. So anyhow, I do think that it's very, very important. As soon as possible, I don't know why we can't elect to do something at this meeting. I know we just heard about the Brown Act and stuff, but it seems to me that this is a topic on the agenda. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and I mentioned this to Walt, I don't think that we're getting, as far as INCO, I don't think we're getting our information out to the public as much as we should, because again, I think this is a topic that doesn't just have to do with noise factors about airport noise. And I think if more people knew about it, we'd have more people. This is a type of meeting that, many people should be attending. And on Zoom, I just see there's 10 participants, and I don't know how many are there, but it looks like not very many. And, I think when I went to an executive board meeting a couple of months ago, and I had mentioned that for years, I had always been receiving notifications on INCO through email, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. And I'm just wondering if a lot of other people aren't receiving notifications, or if a decision was made to just make it to chairs. I think it's important to build an email list and let people know what's going on. And, if chairs can submit their email list to whoever does this at the city, so that people are being more informed. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents, and I really appreciate everything that went on today. It was very informative, a great meeting, actually, so thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And it looks like that's our last speaker. Oh, wait, go ahead.
I want to say one more thing. 2 months ago.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Yes. 2 months ago, at our meeting, our INCO meeting, we had the planning commission lady do a presentation for us. She took my information. I had brought up about the airport. She told me that they would contact me within 2 days. We have heard nothing from her. I think she walked out the door and threw away the paper.
Probably.
So that, and that was the concern, was the airport noise for both. They took it away for the Oxnard College. They even got a grant to build the new Oxnard High School, I'm sorry. They built the Oxnard High School with a grant because the Oxnard High School was in the flight line. And now they're building more housing in the flight line and more schools. It's
Right.
not right.
Thank you. Did you have something to say, Walt? Or no? Okay. All right, so, thought we put it on the agenda that we were gonna take go ahead, just a second, that we were gonna take a vote on it, but it doesn't appear to.
I'll try to make this as fast as I possibly can. My husband worked at Aspen Helicopters for 19 years and in the office. He wasn't a pilot. And I know that none of the pilots are doing this intentionally, wanting to harm people, hurt anybody. It can't be. But if I was living out there, I would not live around where the airport is. I live just north of the 5 Points intersection, a block east and a block north of it. And the trains coming through the 5 Points intersection and have to keep honking and honking and honking and about drive you up the wall. When I had to get a new roof put on my house, I made them it's a peaked roof like a regular house. Even though it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath mobile home, it can't really be moved. But anyway, I had them just cram the inside of the roof just underneath the plywood. I had them cram in insulation in there as much as they could possibly get in. Since that time, I've never heard a sound until I go outside. But as long as I'm inside and I got that nice insulation in the roof, I don't hear a thing, nothing. And I'm just a block north and a block east of the 5 Points. So those trains are just terribly loud, and they don't need to be that way. I am very sorry about this situation. I've been with the Aviation Museum at Camarillo Airport since we began in 1981. I'm not a pilot, but I've been to hundreds and hundreds of air shows, okay, in my adult life. I had my first flight in a Piper Cub when I was 7 years old, and my father told me, it's unsafe, you shouldn't do it. Well, this was up in the Northwest, and I didn't believe him, and I never did believe him. We don't have everybody having accidents with their airplanes. It's not very often. It's rare. In comparison to the amount of flights, the amount of crashes is practically nothing in comparison. I am very sorry about the situation. I wish I could do something about it, but I can't. All those houses around the airport should not be there. They should not be there. They never should have been there because the airport was there first.
I'm handling this.
That's all I know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one really quick comment, if I may. We're not asking for them to do anything other than what their charter says they'll do. We are asking them to do what the 150 study said they would do, and for the community to get involved in the new 150 study so that everybody has input, because nobody had input last time. That's what we're asking for. Just do what you said you'd do.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening. Paul Schnabelin, River Park Neighborhood Council. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a moment and say, considering what we described and considering the history of the area, this place was a military training base during World War II. It's been general aviation ever since. So I think it's pretty much a given that there's all kinds of pollutant materials anywhere in the vicinity of the airport. We have the noise issues, which you gentlemen have brought to light, and obviously the county's ignored. But the thing I have trouble squaring with this is, you're saying we want to that the goal is to mitigate. How exactly is this ever going to be mitigated? The only way I can see this thing ever being mitigated is for the airport being closed down. So,
well, that's a possibility. If you're asking my opinion, I think what we need to do is clean up the mess that's there so that we don't have a health hazard. I think we need to pay attention to what our own study says and fly by those rules, because everybody was in agreement with that as far as Oxnard Shores. My concern is for the development that is about to happen. It's already been entitled, that is going into an area that is polluted, and you can't mitigate the noise. You're right. So for the last study, they said, well, if the county buys these homes, and they were the only homes that were the problem, then there wouldn't be an issue, and then don't do the rest of the development. Well, the city went ahead and did the development, or at least entitled it, and put in some schools and some other buildings. So it would be not to develop it. Clean up what you have, move the school, buy Teal Club, and don't develop the rest of the land that's in that sensitive area, and fly the pattern that your noise study says you're supposed to fly, which they're not doing. No harm, no foul. You have an airport, you have aviation, you have all of the benefits of the county and the city that it brings, emergency services and all of that. We understand the value of the airport. We understand there's a flight community that are our neighbors that want to use the airport. We're fine with that. Let's just do it right. That's
yeah, I think
are.
this would be better. I think that once we form any of the subcommittees or standing committees, these are all kind of the conversations about possibilities and solutions that I personally feel would be best discussed there, since it would be more of a specialized, since this is more of just talking about some of the issues and bringing it to INCO's attention about the advisory committee. So I love all of everything that I'm hearing about the different possible solutions and all that kind of stuff, but I definitely think that potentially discussing this at a subcommittee or a standing committee of INCO would be best.
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Did you have a question? Wait, we have one more question.
I have one more question.
Oh, sorry, we have one more question for you, gentlemen.
I apologize. Just one. I was wondering if the committee will be just open up to to the public, have a public perspective into this, because it should be, it's one thing having the chairs and the committee, but we should at least have some parts of the public that's not part of the chair to make it fair.
Okay, well, we'll discuss that when we vote on it next month.
Okay, that's all I was going to say.
Okay.
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item F, neighborhood chair reports. Does anybody have a neighborhood chair report? And we'll open it up to the floor first, and then the executive board.
Doug Pertello, Cabrillo. I'll try to be brief. We established a subcommittee for the Cabrillo Neighborhood Council that deals with the Cabrillo Park Quimby Funds Reserve. We have $144,000 in reserves from the Quimby Fund. So we've established a subcommittee. It's going to be led by Claire Ochoa. She's our secretary. She's been doing a terrific job. We're trying to get as much community input on what enhancements we could possibly do with our park. So we had our first meeting on January 21st. It was well attended. We got some great ideas. Some ideas are kind of rising to the top, but we want as much involvement from our neighborhood as possible and the community in general. So we're going to have those meetings every 2 months until the end of the year. In the beginning of 2024 is when our CIP project for enhancements to our park can get on the queue for the city engineers and the Public Works Department. That won't begin until the beginning of 2024. So we're going to utilize this entire year to make sure that everybody's voice is heard on it. We know that there's other communities that have excess Quimby funds. I believe there's 20 or 21. So if anybody's interested in, the process and maybe how they can learn from the process that we're doing involvement with and how that goes, you have to go through the Parks Commission. You get agendized on your neighborhood council level. So we're kind of in that process ourselves. So that's kind of all that's going on for Cabrillo. We're going to have our next meeting on February 16th. We're going to have the animal safety officer there because we got a lot of barking dog issues. So that's just one thing that's coming up. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank everybody that came to the meeting at the PAC. I didn't get there early enough to start directing traffic into where it had to go, but as soon as I did get there, I was out there directing everybody to where to go, because there's 4 or 5 different major places to have meetings there. But I just want to thank everybody that had anything to do with it, that came, that was actively involved in it in any way, shape, or form. I thought it was really, really great. I was really impressed with what came off, and that's as much as I can say. But anybody who missed it, if there ever is another one, be there. Cancel whatever you got going and be there, because it's well worth it, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Tim Gingras from Rio Linda neighborhood. As I said earlier, we're holding our election meeting February 16th at the Rio Linda School on 2131 Snow Avenue. Hopefully, our beat officer, Juanita Suarez, will come and speak, and we're having somebody from the Ready and Resilient program. Maybe I'll see you next month, maybe I won't. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening again. Paul Schnabelin, now formerly the chairperson of the River Park Neighborhood Council, thanks to the last meeting. I want to thank Chair Velze for coming to join us and being there to witness the meeting. Had a great turnout. Had some interesting discussions about the budget for the CFD for our area. Had some got introduced to the new police officer. Has an interesting discussion about CERT with the fire department, and so very, very productive meeting. We're looking forward to having another meeting here on the 23rd, where we'll be discussing the sports facilities that are jointly used between the Rio School District and the community. So we're looking forward to talking about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
John Hike, Bryce Canyon North. Courtesy of Adam, I guess. We have some posters here for the forum coming up. How many District Sixers are still here? Hey, there's 2 of us. Okay. Well, if you want some of these, you can have them.
Thank you. We'll go to the Zoom. Jack. Sorry.
That's okay. Yes, I just want to thank all those neighborhoods that participated in the District 4 meeting we had last Thursday. There was about 80 to 90 residents there from all the 8 neighborhoods in District 4. Thank you to the city manager, Nguyen, and Councilman McDonald and Mayor Zaragoza for being our guest speakers. And I encourage the other districts to have meetings for district meetings at least once a year. I think it helps with promote those inactive neighborhoods to become active and help participation in each of the neighborhoods to increase. So again, thanks to all the chairs that participated, like Pat Brown and Chairman Richards and Chairman, now I'm forgetting, Alice Madrid, and let's see, Socorro Gamboa, as thank her, and the Wilson neighborhood showed up strong. And I just want to thank everybody that participated in it. It was a very good turnout. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody on the executive board have neighborhood chair reports?
Real quick, Blackstock South, Chris Bissonette. Johnson Creek Park, the playground's being installed right now, finally, and it should be done here in probably 2-3 more weeks. We've got a scheduled meeting for 9th of March. There you go. We got a scheduled meeting for the 9th of March, and we've already submitted 2 street surveys to add stop signs and speed humps on 4 different streets.
Thank you.
Hi, this is for the Sierra Vista neighborhood. We have new street signs that were put up in front of the Pleasant Valley Shopping Center, which have made sure the truckers and basically the RVs can no longer park there, and the streetwalkers are now gone completely now because since they left. We've applied for speed bumps for Olds Road, for Beaumont Avenue, for Sanford Street, Lincoln Court, and Reading Avenue. The applications were put in. We also have street markings are going to start being this coming. To my understanding, will be as soon as weather permits. We also have street pavement will begin in February on Sweetland Street, which is desperately needed. And we've also had a wonderful turnout at our last meeting. We had unexpected visitors from Councilwoman Vianney Lopez's office showed up. And I just want to thank everybody for the turnout we had, and want to thank the board for supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda?
Hi, Amanda Meir with Wagon Wheel. During our last meeting, we had an opportunity to engage with our beat officer as well as some of the individuals who will be patrolling our area to increase community engagement with our law enforcement. During our next meeting, we're going to get a presentation on the speed hump program that the city is providing. We've also changed where we will now just meet the last Wednesday of each month. It's a little bit easier rather than saying like the 3rd or the 2nd for us. We tend to host our meetings every month to try to build community engagement. I think on average, we have roughly between 20 to 25, and that's continuing to grow. So we're really excited. One thing I just wanted to report is I want to say thank you to the youth development for coming and giving us that presentation, as well as staying through the meeting. I think it's wonderful, as well as to all the chairs. I know these meetings can run a little bit long, but I want to say thank you to the individuals who stay and give their respect to everyone who is still here. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our neighborhood will be having their meeting on April 27th of this year, of course. And we are continuing to work on a curb actually a tree that is keeping water pooling into our street, so we continue to work on that. We are also starting to work on a little area between Lowe's and a pedestrian pathway to have it developed and maybe some sort of decorative stuff be put in, as well as safety lights down the pedestrian pathway. So we are still we are working on that now. And that's it for our neighborhood. And does anybody have anything else for neighborhood reports? Okay, so let's go on to item G, executive board reports. Jack has his hand up first, so I'm going to go ahead and let him go first.
Yes, just that I will be at Bartolo North meeting. They will be having an election. Alice Madrid will be stepping down after several years of being the chair in that neighborhood. So I want to thank Alice for all her work and participation for that neighborhood. And we look forward for the new council in that neighborhood. Also, we'll be out in College Estates sometime soon, Terrace Estates, Bryce Canyon South, and Blackstock North. I think I know I'm missing one, but
Via Marina?
Via Marina, yes, correct. That's the other one. Okay, thank you, Diana.
You're welcome.
But we'll be out to those neighborhoods and trying to get either an established new chairs or reestablish the neighborhoods.
Mhm.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Jack.
Via Marina?
Oh. Okay, any?
Yeah, the concern, one of the concerns I've had from many people is regarding the drug activity over up on Yucca and Bard. Yucca and Saviors, I'm sorry. Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, there's been numerous drug activity going on in that area. Wanted to bring it to the board's attention and see if we can have the police start doing extra patrols over there. Thank you.
So as previously mentioned about subcommittees, so as an executive board, we have thought about this and it was brought up, and so I'm bringing this to the general membership to be voted on for the next meeting, is the creation of subcommittees. We could have one based off of the airport, maybe an elections committee, a committee on homelessness, and what these committees will do is provide opportunity for more engagement, not only with our city and county, but with each other. And so we'll be sending out a list of about 10, I think, or so, to then at the next meeting be voted on about the top 5. I think that 5 is a good number to kind of start with. And once those committees are voted on, we will have the opportunity for the different chairs to kind of join. And so this is something that I believe will be very crucial to uniting all the neighborhoods as well as getting the participation out. As chairs, it is my perspective that we have a duty to inform our neighbors. So for the INCO meetings, for things that are going on, we have our email lists, which are wonderful, but really kind of utilizing that when we get this information. Our city staff, I want to say thank you to Samantha and Adam and everyone. They're beyond amazing about helping us and getting all the information out and everything that we need. And so it's really imperative that as a community of Oxnard residents that we really help each other out and support each other, because it's when we all work together is when us as a community can really thrive. So that will be forthcoming is the subcommittees. If you have any questions and or concerns or ideas of different subcommittees, please feel free to email me. I can have Adam send out my email so we can kind of create the list of subcommittees that will be moving forward for 2023. I think that's kind of the biggest one for my executive board report. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, and I agree, especially thank you to Adam and Samantha. They do help us a lot. And we will be working on subcommittees for the year. I totally lost my train of thought, but anyways, I want to also thank the Youth Coalition for being here and hanging out for the whole night, and it's really, really thank you for being here. And then also, off note, but everybody, not everybody, a lot of people know that I'm a wildlife nut. And I do care about the animals and wildlife. And I just wanted to tell you guys that the big bear eagles had their 2 eggs in January, and the PIP watch will begin on February 15th. So if any of you guys have kids or, that would like to watch nature in progress, I think it's a wonderful thing. So it's Big
There's
Bear.
a webcam for the.
Yes,
yep,
there
yep.
is, and it really is cool. So
I can send that also out to the general membership.
okay,
The link. Sure,
all
why
right,
not?
I'll send it to you. Yeah, so yeah, I watch it. So that's it for me. Thank you everybody for sticking it out. Oh,
Hello?
one more thing. This is what I want.
Hello?
We are
Hello?
having
Hello?
we are
Hello?
having.
I'm on the,
Okay, can you mute her?
hello, I'm on the line.
Hi, I'm sorry, who's on the line? We just see a number.
Okay, we anyways.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, we hear you.
Hello?
Hi, we hear you.
Oh, good.
Can you please identify
Oh,
yourself?
good.
Sorry, we just see a phone number.
Yes. Yes, I understand. This is Deirdre Frank. I live in Oxnard Shores. I'm a little concerned about our neighborhood's participation in the INCO. I see
Chair.
Diane
This
Delaney.
is sorry, Deirdre, I hate to interrupt, and I know what you
That's
have
all
to
right.
say is probably.
I know I'm late. I just
But we're
turned
on executive board reports, Deirdre, and that's the subject we're talking about right now.
Okay, so let me know when it's appropriate.
We're pretty much done with the meeting, except for future agenda items.
Okay, well then I'd like to speak on future agenda items.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. What was I going to say now? We are, as our subcommittee has been working on the forum for District 6. I really do believe that as chairs, we should support our subcommittees. And even if we're not in that district, it'd be nice if you could show up. Now, I don't know if this is going to be shown on Zoom or anything else like that, but it'd be nice because it is a special meeting, right?
So the meeting, the candidates forum, who I just need to give big kudos to the committee. They have been working extremely hard and very diligently to make sure that this goes off without a hitch. The meeting will be on February 9th. All the information's on the flyer that will be sent out as well to the general membership. We do highly encourage members to spread the news to your District 6 friends and anyone that you know that's in that community. We are hosting it in the community. There's a lot of opportunities to be engaged. It will be on Zoom as well, and you have the opportunity to dial in, which is wonderful. But we do highly encourage everyone to show up to meet the candidates and to see who might be on the new city council, which will be wonderful. So, and if you have any questions, the committee, I know, is ready and able and willing to answer any and all questions. And I gear them towards Ronald because he is what I call the election committee extraordinaire.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and I also say, you know, even if it's not our district, these people are going to be representing us as a whole. So, you know, I highly recommend showing up for the forum and also in support of our own team. And
Also, Vice Chair Muir, there's a deadline to submit questions. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. And all that information is on the form. I know I have received some from others. There's some flyers up front for those attending in person and for those online. I know Adam, in a wrap up, will be sending that out as well. And if you do have any questions, please contact us. We're happy to do that. There is a deadline to submit questions, which again is on the flyer. I am blanking on the date right now, so I apologize.
It's tomorrow.
Just kidding, it's tomorrow. So if you've got questions, get them in. I highly recommend it. And questions will not be accepted after the deadline, so that way we can have enough time to kind of coalesce all of them together. So please get them in.
Yeah, and if you are in the area of District 6 where your next door can reach it, put it online, as many chairs as they can, even if you're not in the district, put it online for that District 6 so they can get as many people involved as they can. So I think we probably said it all. Okay, let's go on to H, future agenda items. Does anybody have any recommendations for future agenda items?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Deidre.
Thank you. I live in Oxnard Shores. I see that Diane Delaney is on the Zoom. I don't know if she's still there. We've not had a meeting, and so I would appreciate perhaps you doing an audit or some kind of review on the number of meetings that your various neighborhood councils have had. I know there's a requirement that a certain number be conducted and certain functions fulfilled. And I have not been able to participate in any neighborhood council meeting in my neighborhood. So I don't know the extent of your oversight ability, but I think some evaluation might be in order. Perhaps Ms. Delaney, if she's still on the call or on the Zoom, could provide us with some status at your next future agenda on what the Oxnard Shores Neighborhood Council has been doing in the way of conducting meetings and inviting neighborhood participation.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Doug. It's coming.
Doug Cabrillo. Yeah, I'd like to see the Fisherman Wharf renovation on the agenda. I know that's county property, it's a county project, but it certainly affects us Oxnard residents. There is a group that's very active on this topic in that community, led by Ted Guile, and I've been attending some of those meetings. We had the harbor director come. I think it'd be great if we could get the harbor director to come. If we could get our representation from the Board of Supervisors, which is the new member, Vianney Lopez, who was a former council member for the city of Oxnard, and maybe some community representation, because this project is going to impact those locals in the beach community, certainly, but us as Oxnard as a whole. And we've got a lot of concerns about the project that's kind of moving forward on it with the strawberry themed kiddie park, and then some of the issues in terms of traffic, pollution, noise, crime, the impact of our general fund, because even though it is county property, it will be our safety officers that will be responding. And I know a lot of these theme parks attract gangs and other issues in the community. So I think it's a real good topic for us to bring forward and discuss. Thank you.
Diane.
Sorry, anybody else? Go, Chris, go ahead.
I know we've already talked about the alleys and the roads being repaired.
Chris, can you talk into the mic, please? I'm sorry.
So we've talked about alleys and roads in the past and sidewalk repairs. Now with all this rain going on, what's the remediation of all the potholes?
Okay. Amanda?
Yes, I would like to have for next month a youth coalition presentation. I think that would be wonderful to have. Also, the subcommittees, and another item that I think would be beneficial for INCO to discuss in a future meeting is Measure M.
Okay, is that it? Anyways, so
The-
let's not do crosstalk here. Let's go ahead and, just a minute, Jack, I'm gonna let, John Paul go.
I think I agree with Doug Partello and think we need to have a discussion with the new Strawberry Theme Festival
Okay.
because it's going to affect not only that part of the town, it's also going to affect South Oxnard. So with the traffic, so I think we need to have that meeting.
Okay, Jack?
Yes, I would like a discussion on some of the neighborhoods that are might be in need of a translation devices like the city hall has or the chambers have available to them. And because I know there's some neighborhoods that might need translation for their meetings, and I think it'd be beneficial to extend our communication to more residents, especially the Spanish-speaking residents. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jack. Is there anybody else with future agenda items? Okay, so let's move on. So I adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
Gosh. My bottle that I like to throw around? Uh-huh.
Because I'm going to share the email that I get when they're going to get